Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream. This image of South African student Zuleika Patel facing off against an administrator has reignited a complex conversation about race in her country. Take a look at what happened outside the Pretoria High School for Girls last week.
Arrest everyone. All of us. They're going to arrest us, guys. They're going to arrest us. Take us all, guys. Take us all. Arrest us. You can't arrest us. You can arrest us. Arrest us, guys. Arrest us.
Those students were arguing about the code of conduct at the Pretoria High School for Girls. The rules do not specifically ban afros. It does require that hair must be brushed, styles be conservative, and that cornrows, natural dreadlocks and braids must be a maximum of 10 millimeters in diameter. But the whole thing has stirred up a national debate in South Africa about the subtle and not so subtle way students with afro hairstyles are forced to conform to white culture. The hashtag Stop Racism at Pretoria Girls High is widely circulating, with stories of prejudice and tweets of support. Malika Bilal has more.
Well, this face-off in Pretoria, as you see here, has spread to other schools across the country. Hundreds of boys and girls are standing up against policies regulating appearance and language that they say is racist and discriminatory. Now, this is the Sansusi High School in Cape Town.
Our principal said that rules don't apply to the teachers, it applies to the pupils. So I can't speak my mother tongue to my friend, but the teacher can speak her mother tongue to her other friend, which is unfair because we don't know the Afrikaans they speak. The Afrikaans they speak is not the one that they teach us.
There has been pushback to the allegations, though. The Minister for Basic Education has called the rules standard codes of conduct that are not rooted in racism. There's also a hashtag and other students, parents, and administrators in support of the schools and their regulations. So when are policies about appearance and language about a whole lot more? Well, with us to discuss is Mishka Wazar. She's a Daily Vox journalist and a 2015 graduate of the Pretoria High School for Girls. Virginia Kepler is on the phone. She's the Pretoria bureau chief of the Citizen newspaper.
Melissa Alona Keane is a parent of two Pretoria High School girls, aged 15 and 17. And Teresa Oakley-Smith is founder of Diversity, and that's a change management consultancy and human resource development and training organisation. Ladies, it's good to have you here. Melissa, let me just show you a headline. This is from the Guardian newspaper. Here, racism row over South Africa schools' alleged hair policy. Your girls go to this school. What do you make of this uproar? Is it a racism row?
Absolutely, emphatically and categorically no.
Because?
I happen to be at that very school at that very moment, and I can tell you from personal experience, being in the rough of it, it has nothing to do with race. It has to do everything with upholding school constitution and rules and regulations.
So if Teresa, go ahead, please do.
I mean, I think that, you know, Melissa's used the word constitution, which I think is quite helpful, because I think that school rules should be based on our constitution, which is a lauded constitution worldwide. And the kind of rules and codes of conduct that we're seeing in some of our schools are very far from our constitution. They're very exclusive. They don't allow for children who are different from the white mainstream. And they cause alienation among pupils. And what we saw this week was not anything about hair. Hair was a mere allegory. It was really an example of how racism is in practice in many of our schools.
Well, I want to throw two tweets out there that would disagree with you a little bit, I'd gather to say. This is someone who says, no pupil has been forced to do anything, quote unquote, unnatural to comply with a reasonable requirement of a neat appearance. So that's one person's view. Here's another one. Mishka, I'll direct this to you. CD says, honestly, I feel like these strict rules were necessary to curb fashionistas and maintain a certain level of sanity, he says. Not sure what being sane has to do with how you appear, but you hear those two tweets there. What is it that these two people are pushing back against, and do you agree? Mishka?
Well, yeah, okay, so I don't understand what they mean by fashionistas, because they're basically saying that black girls don't have the necessary competence to sort of decide what kind of hairstyles fit their daily lives. So I really don't understand what a person means like that. And also to maintain sanity, that's a little problematic. What exactly are they trying to define as sanity within a school environment? I'm very confused by what they mean by that.
Sorry, Mishka, could I just interject and ask, you've used the term to say the black learners are deemed to be fashionistas, loosely verbatim what you've now said, but it's not about a black and white issue, it's about a school rule policy. It doesn't have to be whether your child's Indian, colored, white, it's a school rule policy. So it's not aimed particularly at any black learner, it's purely based on policy.
Well, when the schools are basically what the rules are doing is using a standard of white femininity and a standard of the white mode of neatness to categorize black learners. So I do think that the rules are racist and discriminatory towards black learners.
Mishka,
and
you were
most
at the
of the
same
learners
school.
at the school are saying that it's racist. I don't see how anyone who isn't black has the right to say that the rules aren't racist if 1,000 or so girls of color at the school are saying that it is.
Mishka, you were at the school until just last year, so you attended the same school that Melissa's girls attend right now. What incidents of racism did you see at school?
Well, obviously my lived experiences at the school as an Indian woman are going to be very different from a black girl at the school. But in my own experiences, I've had teachers come up to me and basically, I mean, I've had very Islamophobic comments thrown at me, teachers who say that the way that I dress, or if I decided to wear a scarf during Ramadan, I didn't really belong at the school, and it was inappropriate as part of the school uniform. From what many of my friends have told me, my black friends, and what I've seen them go through, they've been pulled out of assembly, they've been humiliated, mistreated by teachers, called names, just average sort of everyday acts of racism that you'd think in 2016 would not still exist in this country.
Virginia, I want to bring you
Can
in
I
here.
just agree with you? Can I agree with you?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Agreement.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I agree with you completely. I've worked in various schools, universities, and South African businesses. And the kind of covert and, in fact, overt, but especially covert racism that you describe is very much in evidence. And it's to do with our schools and our universities and our businesses becoming places where people of color, black South Africans, Muslim South Africans, people who are different from the white mainstream are forced to be assimilated or forced to fit in. And exactly as Mishka says, it's who sets these standards of neatness? Neat for who?
Teresa, I love that you said that, Teresa, because I want to share this tweet with someone just to show you that you're not the only one thinking that. And Virginia, I'll give it to you. This is someone on Twitter who says, why are African children being expected to meet a Eurocentric beauty standard? It's literally their natural hair. Virginia, I know that you've been covering this, your newspaper has. Some of these girls have been told that they don't look tidy, meaning their natural hair doesn't look tidy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I think we should be very careful, and it's a pity that we didn't revise school rules a long time ago, especially in the former white-only schools that are now multiracial. It's very sensitive to tell a black girl that your hair is not tidy and that you need to wear it a certain way or have your plaits done a certain centimeter, because that is dictating to them what is who they are as a person. We as Africans have come a long way to embrace who we are and to feel comfortable with who we are. So the previously pictures of dolls and the white dolls that we played with the straight blonde hair and the blue eyes, that is not only beautiful, it is beautiful too, but we are also beautiful. So we need to teach our daughters from a young age that no matter what the texture of your hair is or how you carry it, as long as it is clean and if you are comfortable with it, then it should be good enough. We cannot in this day and age have a debate really about if you plait your hair black girl using false hair, then it must be 1 centimeter thick.
See, Virginia, as you've been saying that, Virginia, as you've been saying that, Melissa was doing this. Melissa was shaking her head. Melissa, what's the matter?
It's absolutely shocking for me that people have not taken the opportunity to visit the school, actually look at what happens inside the school. And once again, I've been part of their community for 5 years, and I will continue to be part of the community. And what shocks me is that you say school rules have not been amended, yet the School of Code of Conduct, second page, clearly cites that it's in line with the GDE's School of Code of Conduct, South African Schools of Conduct of 2007. So we're talking long past 94. We're talking 2007 amendments. So our school, Pretoria Girls High in particular...
We're in 2016 now, Melissa.
Exactly,
I'm not sure if you're
what
aware,
we're saying is
that we're now in 2016.
And thank you for the clarity.
Yes,
I am aware it's 2016. I'd like to complete my sentence. And what's amazing is our school is one of the few schools that actually still allow cornrows, that allow braids, that allow any of that. What's really interesting for me is that schools have actually come out and said, Girls High, you guys are actually not out of line. We don't even allow that in our schools.
Listen, Teresa, I can see people watching this who don't have Afro hair, who don't know Afro hair in any way, going, what is going on here? They spent 10 minutes talking about hair. Let me show you something here. This is a university student. This was posted by a university student from the University of Pretoria. He's a law student. He's talking about this conversation, this protest is something bigger than all of us. Mishka, you wrote about this. You wrote about the something bigger. Do you want to explain why this isn't about hair? It's not about whatever language you might want to speak at school or might not be allowed to speak at school. It's about what?
Basically, and I think it relates to Melissa's idea of all the schools in South Africa having a sort of common constitution when it comes to neatness and rules. It's about the very systematic and institutionalized racism within this country, which is something that Teresa's already brought up. It's about the fact that, as Teresa said before, people of color in this country are forced to assimilate to a certain ideal of whiteness. Girls have to assimilate to a certain ideal of white femininity in order to be taken seriously in this country, within the education sector, the business sector, sometimes even in the shops. If you don't speak a certain way, if you don't dress a certain way, if you don't carry yourself in a certain way,
Mishka? Let's be very candid here. Describe the certain way so people outside of South Africa understand what you're alluding to. What is that certain way you have to look and dress?
It's all to do with white privilege.
Yeah, carry on, Teresa.
Mishka.
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
I was going to say it's to do with white privilege. There's the sense that one gets, even listening to Melissa, that it's somehow my school. It's somehow a school that belongs to us. And we're forgetting that now the schools are for all South Africans. They're not for just a tiny minority of whites. We white South Africans, Melissa, we make up 8.9% of the population. And you can shake your head, but that's the truth. And sooner or later, we're going to become more and more irrelevant.
What you're saying is important.
We need to be forgiving. We need to open our schools
Virginia, hold tight
up
for a moment so I can hear you. Just give me a moment. Teresa, finish up that thought so I can bring in Virginia.
Yeah. My thought is that as white South Africans, we've done so little about actually redressing the terrible apartheid and racist laws of the past. We're still keeping these going. And instead of being open to schools, changing policies and changing rules, we're trying to desperately hang on to our white privilege in these areas and making lives uncomfortable and difficult for pupils, whether it's those pupils that want to wear hijabs because they're Muslims, whether it's a pupil that wants to come with an isipandla because they're African and have been through a ceremony for their ancestors. All of these things are just about diversity, and diversity will make our schools better, will make them more creative, more innovative, and guess what? They'll even have better results.
I want to bring in a perspective here from our community that's watching us online. I want to get their voice in. And they are broadening this out a little bit about this being more than just language and hair. Here's a comment we got from a former student of one of the schools at the heart of this. Have a listen to Sisifo.
First and foremost, as a Sansusi old girl, I'd like to say that I'm completely embarrassed to have come from such a school. I cannot believe that 22 years into our democratic dispensation, girls have to be subjected to such racism and discrimination? I mean, honestly, what issues does one have with another person's hair? How does hair impede another person from getting their education? How do you say such things about another human being? It's utterly despicable.
So she mentions 22 years into our democratic dispensation. Here's another person who picks up on that on Facebook. Nothani says, racism equals South Africa. It's our tradition. It all started in the 90s when CODESA, that's the Convention for Democratic South Africa, the negotiations to end apartheid. When those talks happen, we democratize the apartheid policies and structures, but didn't actually do away with them, this person is arguing. Virginia, what would you make of that argument, that those same policies are in place with different words?
I would say that it's true. There's a lot of mistakes we made and a lot to learn and a lot to fix. We have focused a lot on politics only, and we have forgotten about these issues in schools and in all other sectors. But at the Pretoria Girls High, we must not just concentrate on the hair issue, because there's always a language issue, where girls are told not to speak their their mother tongue, in classes when they're talking to their friends. And it has been said that they're making funny noises. Now, South Africa is a very unique country. We have 11 official languages. And I would have thought, and my children experience it in their schools, that the more languages they share amongst each other, the more they learn from each other. We're a diverse country. Let's embrace our uniqueness. And really, our government has done a lot on politics to do what was wrong in the country. But it is so that there is a lot of other things that they've neglected, and schools is one of them.
Melissa, what do you make of the fact that this protest at the school that your girls go to, it's got a lot of support, a lot of debate around the entire country? What do you make of that?
I have to tell you, I'm greatly saddened. Number one, the issue about vernacular came in, and the question I have to pose to the people that are complaining is, then why are our children in a white school? When they write their matric exams, it's written in English, primarily Afrikaans. Given it might not be the right thing, because we have 11 official languages, but it is what it is for now. And when they're at school and they're speaking the vernacular, how can the teachers and the educators assist them in fixing a language in which they'll have to write their personal exam? That being said, we'll get back to the media. The media should never have been involved in what's happened at Girls High. It was not handled internally. The process was not followed. Our AGM is, in fact, only tomorrow evening. So these things should have been brought along process. Media should not have been allowed in from day one. The MEC for Education, Mr. Lesufi, had actually brought them in, had named and shamed the educators.
If media had not been allowed in, Melissa, we wouldn't know what was happening at your school, at your daughter's
Therese,
schools.
if media wasn't allowed in,
if you were
if I could just finish, if media wasn't allowed in, we wouldn't have had the repercussion that you are probably not aware of. Because we've had parents phoning saying, our children are stuck in the school, they're in lockdown. Educators that are probably in primary school, other schools are saying, we need to go fetch our children. The ripple effect of this is not just in Girls High, it's far-reaching.
I think
so.
That had to come out, because
really
it's the children who made us alert of it. They are the ones who posted the first videos. So for the media cannot ignore that, because obviously this is not just exclusive to that school.
Absolutely, and I agree with you.
Ladies, let me push things forward a little bit more here. Have a look at this. This is from Parktown High School for Girls. And they reacted quite quickly to their people criticising their code of conduct, and they said that the staff has been engaging in workshops facilitated by outsiders about race, racism and diversity, the first of which happened last week. So that was at the end of August.
How convenient.
So,
this should have happened 20 years ago, not last week.
So you don't commend the Parktown High School for Girls for reacting to what is now a big national conversation in South Africa?
I'm saying it was very convenient that they started last week. I mean, how much have they really done over the very many years where black girls have felt excluded in that environment? Yes, it's good that they've started something now, but I mean, we're talking about something that's happened apparently a week ago, and all of this should have been happening many, many years ago.
So there's someone else who would agree with you there, Teresa, in that this being 20 years too late. They widen it out a bit. This is Adila on Twitter, and she says these old white schools, she calls them, under apartheid, some of them were white only, often have these problems. Their staff and their student body government also needs to be more diverse. Mishka, when you were in school, how many non-white teachers, administrators did you have?
Well, I had exactly 2 teachers of color. And I think in the entire school, out of approximately 100 teachers, we have maybe 5 teachers of color. And that's one of the biggest problems we have at the school, because there's no representation for the girls of color. And there's always going to be an inherent power play when you have older white teachers teaching young girls of color, because they don't understand us. They don't understand what it's like to be a young girl of color in South Africa today. So there's always going to be issues with that. That, like Teresa said, we need to broaden diversity within our teachers and like our higher ups in the school as well.
Teresa, what would you say?
Which is all wonderful, but now you're flipping it on its side.
Ladies, one at a time. Melissa and then Teresa. Melissa, go ahead.
Please, thank you, Teresa. You know, the governing body is elected by the parents. It's not elected by the school. So the fact that the school governing body is possibly not representative of the school is solely the responsibility of the parents. If they actually attend the school governing body meeting, let me finish, thank you. When they attend the meetings and they're able to vote who they would like to have them represent them on those committees, they would then be representative.
Okay, Melissa, take a breath. Let me just hear what Teresa has to say. We're almost at the end of the show. Teresa, go ahead.
I mean, I think that what we really need to understand is how difficult it is for the voices of black parents to be heard in these situations and in these settings. Very often, for practical reasons, the meetings are set at times that they can't make. The traveling to get there is difficult for them. They may even be domestic workers expected to work in the evenings. And schools need to go out of their way to make sure that school governing bodies are inclusive.
It's not a black-white issue. That is a humanity issue.
To shrug your shoulders, Melissa, and say that, you know, that they don't want to be on these committees and that they weren't represented. We need, as white
I would like to see you there tomorrow.
You and I, as white people, need to be reaching out and finding as many ways as we can to be far more inclusive and far less racist in the way we deal with other black South Africans.
Mishka, I have a tweet here I want to throw to you from Chelsea. She says, it's the school's rules. So if pupils and parents don't like the rules, they should simply go to another school. What would you tell Chelsea?
I have one thing to say to that. These schools are built on African land. So these schools were built by black bodies because of white colonial rule. You can't tell black people to go to another school when that school is built on their land.
We must remember one thing. One of the parents said, and she stated it very clearly, that there is no color in money. And right now at Pretoria Girls High School, the majority of the pupils there are of color. They are carrying the school. And another thing, some of the girls actually said, they told the MEC, the Education Department, that they have told their parents, but their parents is like, no, don't make trouble, just go to school, do what they want. She had to cut her hair off because she wouldn't braid it.
Virginia, if you think about where those parents are coming from.
It's a generational thing that comes from parents who grew up in apartheid years are still scared.
All right, so ladies, just hold tight for a moment because I want to leave you with the voice of a schoolgirl from Pretoria Girls High. I think her voice is very important. Have a listen to this.
I'm here. I'm a former Girls High girl who has had an afro her entire career at Girls High. The system did not allow for black girls to have afros. It wasn't written in the code of conduct, but they tell you that your hair is very untidy and it's not appropriate with the school uniform. You must flatten it somehow and you need to make yourself look presentable. It's understandable if your hair is really now in your face and everything, but if your hair is neatly tied and your afro is neatly tied, why must you be apologetic for being a black African child in South Africa? Why do black girls always receive the shortest end of the stick?
This conversation is by no means over. It continues using the hashtag AJStream. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.